What stories are you most afraid to tell in your grief? What stories are grievers afraid to tell? The part where you have to talk to the person, where you have to talk about the grief to other people? Are you afraid to tell that? The part where there's parts of grief where you have to talk to people. Let me say that straight, where you have to talk to people. And what parts are you not willing to talk about? Are you not willing to talk about the person that you lost? Are you not willing to say their name? Are you willing to talk about the anniversaries and the special days? Do you talk about how much you love them? Do you talk about how much you miss them? There are parts of the grief that people talk about all the time. Their person, their name, I miss them. It's our anniversary. It's his birthday. They do all that. But there's another part of the grief. It's the other part that very rarely gets spoken out loud. The phone call, the hospital room, the moment where everything changed, seeing the body, going to the funeral home, making the arrangements, having to make the calls, telling his sister, calling his mother, her screaming on the other end of the line, having to tell your children and your children begging you not to have this be true. Many grievers are holding stories that feel too heavy to tell because they keep it hidden. They keep it hidden in their heart, not because they want to, because they don't know how to tell this story to no one who will listen. Because when they start telling the story, they get corrected out of it. Oh, honey, you don't need to tell me that. Oh, you don't need to share that. Because the average person around doesn't know how to hold someone's grief. They don't know how to listen to the grief. The other day I was talking and I started talking about getting the call from the coroner. I was on a live and I was just talking about getting the call from the coroner. Another lady chimed in. I think she asked something about the funeral home. And I started talking pretty deep. And I was like, oh my gosh. The reason we never talk about this because we haven't normalized grief. Grief is still something that happens to other people. It is still something that happens far off. That's the reason that I turned right around and created the story room. What's your grief story? Your grief story may have not started on the day that you lost the person. It could have started months before. Grief needs a place where the hard parts can be spoken out loud. This is why a lot of people stop talking about their grief. In the very early days after the loss, people ask questions. They show concern. They want to help. They want to be there. And God forbid that your person died by suicide. They want all the gory details. Sorry, that's the truth. But as time passes, those conversations often disappear. Friends become uncomfortable with the conversation because what has happened to you could happen to them. And they don't want that shit to rub off on them. Family members worry about saying the wrong thing. Oh my gosh, if I say his name, she might start crying. And if she starts crying, then what am I going to do? So the griever learns something very quickly. They learn to shut their mouth. Certain parts of their grief make people uncomfortable, and so they don't share it. Well, I could tell she felt very uncomfortable, and if she feels uncomfortable, other people must feel uncomfortable, so I'm not going to share it. And when that happened, grievers began keeping their stories to themselves. And it happens a little bit at a time. Each time they start to share the story, and each time they get corrected out of the story that they're sharing, it happens a little bit at a time. They protect other people from the discomfort. But the cost of that silence can be loneliness. The cost of that silence is everything. And then their stories start to stack up. I didn't get to tell this part, so I'm not telling this part. I'm not telling this part. I'm not telling this part. And before you know it, they got a full-fledged blob going on in their heart. For all you young folks out there, The Blob was a movie from the 70s. May have actually been 1969. It was a yucky, sticky consistency like jello that just grew and grew and grew. And that's what will happen to your heart. Many grievers carry very specific memories. His hands were swollen. His face was swollen. I didn't think it was him. I don't think it was him. They lied to me. His face didn't look like that. I wasn't able to see the body. They wouldn't let me see him. They only pulled the hand out. By the time I got there, it was too late. They couldn't hold him. They had to cremate him right away. Many grievers carry very specific memories that they have never shared. I didn't hear what she was saying on the other end of the phone call. I thought she said that her dad was in the hospital. I drove to the hospital by myself. I drove by myself. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was scared. I didn't know where I was going. The area where the hospital was very ghetto. The last words I heard him say were goodbye. The moment they realized their person had died, I didn't know she was going to die. The nurse came in and told me I had to leave the hospital. I didn't know she was going to die. I had no idea it was going to happen that fast. They kept saying 8 months, 8 months. She had 8 months. It wasn't even a month. These memories often play on repeat in their mind. They're like broken tapes that just keep playing over and over and over again. It's a broken CD that just keeps playing over and over again in their brain. And they're not always, these thoughts aren't always in the forefront of their mind. They're in the back of their mind. The brain replays them over and over again, trying to understand what has happened. Psychology research on traumatic memories show that difficult events can remain vivid because the brain is attempting to process an overwhelming experience. The brain is attempting to process that the person is no longer here. And when the memories are never spoken about that, they often stay trapped inside the mind. Talking about this allows the heart and the brain to come onto the same page. When you, the griever, can say the ugly parts out loud, it allows you to line them up. Talking about this allows the brain to begin organizing the experience. This is why hard conversations matter. Grief is not only about remembering the good moments. It's also about acknowledging the painful ones. He hit me. He was in a car accident. I didn't get a chance to see the body. I was confused. I was scared. I have so many questions that went unanswered. Where do you put that stuff? Where do you lay that? Because when you try and lay it with your neighbor or your friend, they correct you out of it. Not on purpose, but because they don't know what the hell to do with it. Many people think they only should talk about the positive parts. Let me tell you, girl, let me tell you this. I can't even begin to tell you how many times people come in and tell me that their relationship with their person was perfect. They don't use the word perfect, but he was the love of my life. I absolutely loved him. I'm not going to be able to live without him. I can't do this. I can't do that. And then we break down into the story. And there's shit in the story. Do they love him? Yes. Was he the perfect person? For them. Is there shit in the story? Yep. It is not uncommon for people to portray this one story of their person, but when they get down into the grief and actually start telling the story, guess what? There's some junk in there. It happens all the time. No judgment, no judgment. But that's also part of the grief. And what happens when you have nowhere to lay that? Your grief includes the full story. You have to tell the full story, the hard parts. You deserve the space to tell the whole story, the hard parts, the easy parts, the loving parts, the mean parts, the broken parts. When people are allowed to speak honestly about their grief, something important happens. They get witnessed. Their grief gets witnessed. And the witnessing of that grief can reduce the isolation that grief often creates. And that's why I created the story room. Let's talk about what happens in the story room. The story room is a space where people can talk about their grief. There is no recording in the story room. If you sign up and you don't come, I'm sorry. There are strict rules in the story room. There's no comparison, no judging, and what happens in the story room stays in the story room. We speak about every moment, and we speak it out loud, even the ugly parts. We talk about the parts that were never spoken out loud before. No one rushes you. No one tries to fix you. And you can even come in the story room and not share a story at all. The story room is not, the purpose of the story room is not to solve your grief. The purpose is allow the truth of this experience to be spoken. Because when grief is shared in a safe space, the weight of the story often begins to shift. We start normalizing the hard part of the grief. Many grievers believe that their thoughts and emotions are unusual. They think that they're wrong for having it this way, for feeling it this way. But let me tell you something, girl. When you start telling your story and you hear someone in the room that has something similar, it changes the way you see your own grief. You start wondering, man, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with them? Is there something wrong with my person? And your story helps someone else. They start realizing they're not alone. They start realizing the grief, that normalizing grief doesn't remove the pain, that normalizing the grief is the place where you start. People start understanding that their reactions are part of the human response to the grief. We all act that way. And it reduces the shame. My love, your grief holds many stories. They're your stories. Some are filled with love. Some are filled with pain. Some are filled with shock, confusion. But they belong to your story of loss. And when those stories are never spoken, grief can feel heavier. But when someone is given the space to speak honestly, something begins to shift. They no longer carry the story alone. And that, my friend, is where healing begins. That, my friend, is where the healing begins. And that can only be done in the story room at the Grief School. Click the link, sign up for the story room. We meet every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Here's the other thing, I share my story as well. I go in deeply and share my story. And I'd be honored to sit with you as you share your story. Thank you, friend.